Hey, good evening. Welcome, everybody. How the heck are you? It's good to see you. It's good to be seen by you. I hope everybody's doing just great. I hope you all had a fantastic weekend. I had a pretty good one. Um, it was very busy and very productive. To that end, I just want to make an announcement right now to the show Patreons. Uh, the first Patreons only video drops tomorrow. The second Patreon video drops Thursday, and it will be Tuesday and Thursday of the following week, and then Tuesday and Thursday of the week after, until I get caught up with everything for you guys. And for the higher tiers, the Patreon's adventure is dropping. Speaking of Patreon, I have had some requests about setting up a Subscribe Star account or some other form of channel support than Patreon. That is in the works. I'm currently waiting on Subscribe Star to authorize me. So if you want to come on and support the channel through that, as soon as it gets set up, as soon as it gets all authorized and A-OK, I will give the link. It's not live yet, so we're just waiting on their okay, waiting on their say so. Yes, we are 6 subs away from 1,000. I would guess by the end of the week, hell, even by the end of the night, possibly. Speaking of which, greetings to the 4 subs that we gained over the weekend. We'll have 1,000 subs. And what does that mean? What does that mean? If you're one of those new subs and you don't know what's going on. When we hit 1,000 subs, we are going to have a virtual gaming con to celebrate it. I will be running OD&D and AD&D, some Twilight 2000, some Tales from the Loop, possibly some Call of Cthulhu, maybe some Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. Paul Stormberg will be in the house. He will be running stuff. Buddy of mine, Mihailo, will be running some DCC. I believe he said he'd run some DCC. Kyle will be running Conflict. He will be running Classic Trav. And anybody else that wants to step up. So when we hit 1,000 subs, guys, that con is going to happen. The Great Underground Online Gaming Convention. The guac. That's right. We will put guac on our burritos. Yes, you will get guac on your burritos when this channel hits 1,000 subs. And I'm here for it. And I hope you're here for it. I am stoked about it. I hope you're stoked about it. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. And I'm really, really excited about it. Speaking of things I'm excited about. So this weekend, in between doing the videos for our Patreons and other knees bent running about, getting my daughter to and from camp. She was at a weekend camp, had a lot of fun there. I actually did some 3D printing. I didn't know if I would have time. And I printed up some Warhammer, well, they're not Space Marines, they're Terminator Marines. Which their power armor is bigger and chunkier. And I've got, I'll have 10 of those printed up. I'll have enough to play Space Hulk with again. Because, I don't have enough to play Space Hulk with as it is. Adam Black is going to run some basic and expert. Well, I mean, come on, if that's not enough reason right there. Right? So Adam, we're looking forward to that. I didn't like leave you. I wasn't like, and we're all going to run cool stuff, but not Adam Black. Screw Adam Black. Death to Adam Black. That's not what I'm saying. I just literally, I've had so many people come forward saying, I want to run stuff. I didn't get to you, man. But now that I see that shout out. So what we'll do first is once we hit 1,000 subs, I'll go and do an organizational thing and get the website for signing up to games, to basically setting up a game grid setup. Because there's so many turnkey solutions. And then I'll build like a Discord and link out to the Discord, and you guys can, come in and join and play. Dungeon Minister, you better be there. You have been in no small way largely responsible for the success my channel has had. So yeah, you better be there. Damien X247. So anyway, 3D printing Space Marines. What has been so much fun about it is putting the models into the 3D software that tells the printer, this is how many to print, this is where to print them on the thing, this is what angle to print, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it comes back and says, very well, your print will take this long. Your print will use this much resin. Since it uses this much resin and you're using this brand of resin, it will cost you this much money. And to print all the Space Marines that I printed, even including the 4 or 5 misprints that were screw-ups on my part, the whole thing has cost me like $6. I feel like a kid back in 1989 when you could buy for $20 or $22 an entire box of Space Marines. And they were on sprues, sure, and you had to snip them and glue them together and paint them, usually badly, and they were made out of plastic, but it feels like those old times again. All these tiny little parts scattered out. I can customize them any way I want, and I love it. I absolutely love it. And you know what? I'll play 40K. I play Space Hulk on 100 scale, so you get, you know, you get the old Russian T-90 tank. It's this big. So I printed up some infantry this weekend at this scale. So it's miniatures that are literally that tall. They're tiny, tiny little things, but the resin printer handles it just fine. You just have to be super careful with them before, because everything's kind of bendy a little bit when it comes off the build plate. And man, if you're not careful when you're taking the supports off of them, you'll just tear them into pieces. So I printed 4 of those little guys, just little tiny US soldiers. And the details are barely distinguishable on them. They're microscopic, but it's silly fun. So yeah, 10 millimeter Imperial Ramblings, 10 millimeter. We've apparently lost our Facebook feed. Okay, it looks like it is it back? No, we've lost our Facebook feed. Sorry if you watch this later, if you're over on Facebook and you missed this, I'm sorry. I don't know why it died. That's maybe a Facebook problem. I don't know. Corian says, I'd be curious to see how epic of a scale you can go. I've always wanted to play Warhammer with it. Apparently it's doable because there are STLs of epic scale Marines. Epic scale Space Marines, as I recall, came on postage stamp size stands, and there were 5 Space Marines on them, is what I remember. So I did play epic scale a few times. I'll tell you guys one day about the great Nurgle Plague Wind epic scale game I played when I won an entire game of 40K epic scale for the side of Chaos. Any news to talk about? 994 subs. First Patreon video of 6 that's coming just bam, 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 bam over the next couple of weeks. Drops tomorrow. 3D printing is going great. Oh, yeah, something happened in Hollywood last night, but I wasn't really paying attention. I'm sure you all saw that. But I'm not here to talk about this because this isn't like a Hollywood entertainment channel. Because honestly, what a bunch of rich weirdos in the entertainment industry, people who literally would not stop to spit on you if you were on fire on the street do, is generally of no interest to me. I've still got that Space Marine set, super small figures. Yeah, Epic Scale is awesome, Adam. But anyway, I will say that I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this because it's a positive thing. All right. Now, I'm not a fan of Lady Gaga. I think she's as fake as this tank. But apparently, she and Liza Minnelli presented an award last night, and Liza Minnelli is a wreck. That's not like, oh, she was drunk and high off her ass kind of thing. I mean, she's just old, wheelchair bound, not in great shape. And they came out and they gave the award. What is the last award at the Academy Awards? Is it Best Picture? Is that like they just lead up and they do Best Picture? Well, whatever the case, they presented it. And she came out, or they came out, and Ms. Minnelli was not having a good time. Just kind of fumbling around with their notes and everything there in a wheelchair. And God bless Lady Gaga. She was helping her out. And it was such a sweet moment. And I only know this because Kyle linked to it in the Discord chat. When she was having difficulty, Liza Minnelli was having difficulty. Lady Gaga leaned over to help her out a little bit, and she said, "It's okay, I've got you." Like whispered it, like didn't realize her mic was going to pick it up, and Liza Minnelli said back to her, "I know you do, hon." And it was just kind of a sweet moment, you know. So I'm just going to leave that there. Well, you know, although expect the memes about the slap. Okay, just expect the memes. So 40K. Let's go back to talking about 40K. Games Workshop used to very much, despite the fact that they were making money very fast, follow the rule of cool. If it was a cool idea, they'd publish it and sell it if it could make them money. So right around 1989, 1990, 91, 92, in there, up until I'd say probably 95, there was stuff like, was it Dark Future, which was not a 40K game. It was a Mad Max game. It was basically their take on Car Wars. They had a whole slew of games under the fantasy, Warhammer Fantasy and Warhammer 40K universes, just separate games that were separated out. And one of them, they tackled the Battletech genre, was Adeptus Titanicus. And Adeptus Titanicus, it assumed that you had mechs that were like the size of the Sears Tower in Chicago. Okay. Gun barrels that you could drive a semi truck down. Just phenomenally huge. Your Battletech, like 4 or 5 meter tall battle mechs. No, get that the hell out of here. Get that out of here. They had serious war machines. And you got some really great styrofoam buildings and, of course, measuring poles. And then there were the mechs, you'd put the mechs together, and it was delightfully weird and Baroque in the way that only 40K can make it. It's like damage was tracked with a wheel on the bottom, kind of like Hero Clicks did later. And the Clicks game, the Battletech MechWarrior Dark Age Clicks game, you turn the little thing to see how your shields were doing and what systems might be damaged. And so on and etc. And then you'd move your oh, stop it, everybody gangsters till the church starts walking and opening fire. Damn right. So almost immediately in the chapter approved sections, which was basically we're publishing errata or paint schemes or additional rules for a game we've published section of White Dwarf magazine. They started saying, okay, well, here's what a predator tank or a rhino or an Eldar warwalker can do against a Titan, and here's what a Titan can do against them. Okay, but what about Terminator Marines? What about Terminator Marines with like melta guns and las guns and so on? Okay, all right. Well, here's what, and it just kind of went back and forth. And then they were like, well, what about Eldar? Are there Eldar Titans? What about Orcs? Are there Orc Titans? What about this? What about that? And it just started to grow, and it became its own game called Epic Scale, where it was basically 6mm scale or 1/285. I think is 6mm. Don't at me if that's wrong. But so yeah, it was a very popular way to ram 40K armies against each other on the cheap and fight for an entire planet or a major starport or something, and not have the need for 20 boxes of Space Marines. I mean, you know, one box of epic scale Marines was an entire chapter. Throw in some Predator tanks and some Rhino support vehicles and some Thunderhawk gunships, all this big. And for less than $100, you could retake a planet. And it was largely regarded as the better way to play 40K on, well, an epic scale. It was smaller than this. They were smaller than this. So that was that was a well-considered game, and I played it a couple of times with friends who had the sets and blew out an entire army with one lucky die roll. I mean, the entire Imperial side, I just wiped out the majority of them. But I'll tell you guys that story later. But while I'm on the subject of printing, Prism tanks were devastating. I didn't play it enough to know whether or not that's factual, but I'll take your word for it, Michael Connor. While I'm on the subject of 3D printing, I had a question pop up in the Discord today. Largely the most popular sub Discord. How do you call that? Room, server, area, BBS, news group. I don't know. Anyway, has been today. Oh, thank you, IR. Thank you. But it has been 3D printing. And so Imperial Ramblings just got his first filament printer now. He's been doing resin for a while, and he has been my Guardo Camino, my go-to, as well as Doomsword Deathmaster. Those two guys have kept me from launching my 3D printer into orbit, covering myself in resin and rolling around on the lawn doing primal screaming. I now have it down to something of a science. But yeah, I'm the guy with the filament printer. So Bluto over on the server, Imperial Ramblings over on the server, they're just getting into the filament printing, and they had some questions about filament printing, and I want to do my best to answer that now. Unsettling image, if you ever heard one. Oh, just wait till I'm like 9 hours into my anniversary stream, which is next week. But anyway, so this is my first printing surface for my 3D printer. It's a magnetic base. If you're not into 3D printing, I apologize. I just really want to answer this question. So imagine you're looking down at the printer, and yes, it's all beaten up because it's been in service for a full year. Print head comes down and starts drawing plastic onto this in the shape that you want it to print. And when you're done, you can peel this off and then just pop your drawing off of it by flexing this. Or alternately, you can carefully scrape it off. There is an issue that pops up in 3D printing called bed adhesion. When the print head comes down and it starts to draw on the surface of your device, if the heat isn't just right, if it's too hot, your print will lift off. If it's not hot enough, your print will lift off. Either way, it will come unstuck. And it can be very frustrating. Now, there's Discord groups, there's Facebook groups, there's subreddits that will tell you all about how you, if you properly tune your 3D printer, you won't need it. It's like, just make sure the bed is leveled, make sure that this is tension, make sure your fan speed is make. There's 1,001 little tweaks that you can do and hopefully get a good print that adheres to the bed. Or you can level your bed, make sure your belts are tightened, and then use this. This is Elmer's washable school glue. It is a stick. It is purple. You do this. You cover your print bed, and you don't have to do it corner to corner, top edge to bottom edge. But wherever you're going to print, you just take it like a crayon. I'm not sure if that's going to show up on camera. Yes, it is. Everywhere that you're going to print. The glue will get warm enough and it's tacky enough that when the printer starts to lay down threads like this, when the printer starts to lay down threads, they will stay stuck just enough. But it's Elmer's glue. They won't be permanently stuck. When you're done, it just pops right off. Now, you might ask the question, Bill, now after I'm done printing, I've got all this glue on my print bed. What do I do? Well, it's Elmer's glue. You peel this off, you take it over to the sink, you run it under warm water, and you wipe it off with a paper towel. The end. It's just Elmer's glue. It's how you'd get Elmer's glue out of anything. Warm water. You don't have to use soap, but you can. But people are like, yeah, I clean my beds with acetone and a combination of paint thinner and nuclear waste. Of course, I have to do it in a sealed vault underneath Cheyenne Mountain so the fumes don't automatically cause sterilization, death, and insanity in a 300-yard radius. Use a glue stick. Use warm water. That's it. That is it. That's all you have to do. Sometimes, now I've seen this happen on a couple of other beds that I have. Yes, I have multiple ones of these. I said this one looks beat up. It looks like somebody's taken a bite out of it. If I bend it, you can kind of see there's a popped up part on the bed. Yeah, they wear out. They do wear out. But sometimes I've forgotten to clean them and I've run prints and it's worked great. Kind of like the 500-pound man merges with the couch after not moving for a year. A little bit. A little bit. Imperial Ramblings says to Vinny, at some point I plan to purchase a 3D printer, and IR says, only if you want another hobby, Vincent. Yeah, so here's the thing with 3D printing. The hobby is robotics. 3D printing is merely a byproduct. It's kind of like my dad tried to explain this to me, and I didn't, and I still don't quite understand this about steel manufacture. The product that is produced when iron is smelted, when iron is basically purified and turned into steel, the product that is produced is slag, the grayish aggregate rock that gets made into driveways, backfill. Sometimes it's actually sintered into armor. The armor of the BMP series of vehicle, the armored personnel carrier that the Russians had, is slag armor. It is sintered slag. It is slag that is superheated and pressed into sandwiched sheets. The Cheyenne Mountain, they send it through. Yeah, there's a black hole we have to throw our 3D printer waste through so it doesn't contaminate anything. But the byproduct of making steel, of making slag, is steel. So you take what you're making and you throw it away, and then you just keep the byproduct. So yes, when you buy a 3D printer for the first time, you're getting into robotics. Welcome to the robotics club. Oh, you wanted to print cool stuff? Yeah, well, I guess you can do that, but you'll have more fun just screwing around with a robot. And I gotta say, as a hobby, I have thoroughly enjoyed working on my 3D printer. A couple of months into ownership of my 3D printer, the thermistor broke. The thermistor is basically a thermometer. It's a little circuit that reads how hot something gets. And in this case, it reports back to the motherboard and says, I'm hot enough. I'm not hot enough. Well, if the thermistor is broken, you can get what's called thermal runaway, which in a computer, well, and it is a computer that controls it. In the control box for there's a computer, and it's an 8-bit computer. I think it's a Zilog. It's like a cut down Zilog Z80, but you can get 32-bit machines that are apparently better. I don't know. I haven't contemplated a motherboard swap or upgrade for it yet, but the computer takes the data from a thermistor and says, heat the head up, lower the head's temp, speed the fans up, slow the fans down, and of course, where to move the head to print. Advance the filament, retract the filament, move the build plate this way, move the build plate this way. When the thermistor breaks, the printer will go, whoa, thermal runaway. It has a fail safe. It will assume that it is getting too hot and it will stop itself. And until you replace the thermistor, it won't run but for more than a few minutes. Once it gets up to temp and starts going, it'll let out a thermal runaway alarm and shut itself off. If you heard stories of people's houses catching fire when they had 3D printers, these were people doing MakerBot and RepRap home builds. And I'm not slagging those companies, no pun intended. I'm just saying those early printers, it was a new technology and nobody really thought it'll be unsafe to leave this thing printing. So there were some house fires because people would set them up on wooden workbenches and they'd run and something would happen. They'd jam and they would just sit there and get hot and hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter. and something would catch fire. This has thermal controls. If it can't accurately sense the temperature, it shuts off. So about 3 months into the ownership, failed. So I learned how to take my printer apart, take the print head apart, remove the thermistor, and put a new thermistor in. I've had to clean it several times because I've gotten buildup around the hot end. The extruder, which is a motor that drives a pair of cogs that pulls the filament through. It pulls it like that. One of the extruder spools basically has a little tiny hex nut in it, or hex bolt in it, I should say. In that, you use a hex wrench. And periodically, that bolt walks out and it stops extruding. It stops being able to get filament down there. So I got to take the extruder mechanism apart and go in and tighten it. I learned how to tighten my belts. There's settling, there's tightening the rollers. The whole thing has been an experiment and an experience for me. And I like the fact that it's something I can work on and fix and understand every part of. And that's one of the reasons that I loved getting into PCs when I did. And I had Commodore 8-bit machines, and then the 816-bit hybrid of the Commodore 128, and then a couple of Amigas. And the Amigas were kind of fun because I did get a few expansion cards to plug onto them, but I never really got to roll up my sleeves and work on them like I did with the PC. Then it was juggling IRQs by moving jumpers and flipping dip switches. And I got in late in PCs. There were people who have been doing this stuff since like 1981 when the IBM PC first came out. And here I was in 1994 learning how to do this. But it's a lot of fun just to be able to dig into it. Now, the resin printer at this point is very much a mystery to me. It is a black box. I don't know what's going on in there. But I'm sure eventually it'll come to the point where I'm like, oh, screen's dead. I order one off Amazon, wait till tomorrow, it'll get here. Pop the thing apart, put the screen on. There we go. Re-level it. Good to go. So it is very much a hands-on hobby. It is not like printer is a misnomer, particularly in resin. You go, imagine if you went to one of the office stores or Best Buy or Target, and you bought a new printer, laser or inkjet, and it stops doing something. Or the first thing you got to do is you got to make sure that it's going to print at the right angle. Well, what do you mean? Well, you got to level your print head. And you got to make sure it stays leveled. You got to do it every time you're going to print a new document. No, 3D printers are not at the turnkey, just go buy one, set it up, put media in it, in this case, filament or resin, and then it just does what it does. You have to babysit them constantly. Now, with the filament printer, I can pretty much go to bed with a print running, and the next morning, I've got a printed gadget. With the resin printer, I'm still keeping an eye on it. I'm still watching out for that. So, yeah, I like 3D printing because it is a hobby of noodling and doodling with stuff. But that's enough about that. Got AD&D happening tonight. Now, not a lot happened last week. Last week's game and tonight's game, the A stands for accounting, because the players have left the Lost Caverns of Sojconf, and they are now they have made their way back to a nearby town, and we're going to be doing a lot of, let's figure out, can anyone level? Is there anyone available to level train them? Are there any little encounters that are going to happen along the way? A lot of role play heavy tonight, but also a lot of figuring out monetary amounts and XP amounts. Now, I'm very lucky because my Monday night group are excellent players. I've never really had to take anybody aside and say, you're not playing very well. I mean, occasionally you get a shy player and you got to give them a little bit of a nudge, like, hey, get in there. But for the most part, my Monday night group is pretty awesome, and they don't mind the training and that sort of thing. I am very much about charging gold. And when we talked about how to play AD&D those months ago, I explained it all. Yes, you have to pay for training. You have to pay largesse, donations, tithes, etc., etc., etc. It costs money. And my players are down with that. Now, I will say, my dear friend, Nutshell Gulag, who plays, yes, that is her handle. She has referred to Advanced Dungeons and Dragons as a punitive game, but that my dungeon mastering makes it fun regardless of the punitive aspect of it. So I take that very much as a compliment that I am able to make it seem not quite so punitive. But I think to go back to what I was saying about tinkering with things, that's one of the things that I like so much about AD&D is there is stuff. Sorry for the squeakiness there. There is stuff in AD&D that you tinker with. AD&D is a tinkerer's role-playing game, and I love that about it. I know people have tied themselves into knots over, oh man, surprise, and I'm one of them. And those weird save categories, and why do thieves get skills and other players don't? And why can't I just learn to cast a couple of spells even though I'm a fighter? And on like that. And then they go on to games where everything is just so. Everything is just laid out for them. Everything is perfecto. AD&D very much isn't that. AD&D is a tinkerer's game. You play around with it. You make adjustments. So that's I think that's one of the things that draws me to AD&D and to other classic games. And speaking of AD&D and other classic games, before I forget, and I mentioned this before, but I just want to catch you guys up on this. If you're going to be in the Orlando, Florida area, or if you are in the Orlando, Florida area, and you're going to be here come June 11th, I will be playing games. The wonderful people at Gods and Monsters, Todd and Anna Maya Young, Todd Fisher, Orlando's original power couple in geek circles, I think so, have graciously allowed me to set up a table and run some RPGs. So I'm going to be playing some OD&D and some AD&D and some Tales from the Loop. So I will be out there on the 11th, my first road game in years, since 2019, 2018, possibly. But I'm really looking forward to it, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you're going to be in town, swing by and say hello. Stop by Vault 5421, get yourself a cold drink, come and sit down, throw some dice. Michael Connor says I usually watch Arcade Law during the day after the stream. Okay, cool. Let's see. Talked about the videos that are dropping, the adventures that are coming. I finally got my ass in gear on those. Oh, and this is a message for James in our, he plays Bejesus and Bejeebus and Valoric in the Tuesday night game. Yes, I will absolutely accept your layout assistance. The modules you sent me examples of are beautiful. So I'll reach out to you later. Just don't know if you're out there watching, but yes, it'll happen. That's why I don't see you in chat. Okay, cool. Unbreaded. A very unbreaded point of view. Speaking of manifestos, I want to ask you guys something. Now, I asked you guys last week if you still wanted to see Servant of Shiloh, almost said Sword of Sodan, SOS. Servant of Shiloh, if you guys still wanted me to reach out to him and see him on the show. A few of you said yes. The majority of you were silent. So I'm still kind of on the fence with that. But if I get no people saying, no, don't bring him on, I'll reach out to him. And if he can make it, then, probably what I'll do is I'll just do a stream like this one night and I'll say, look, here's the link. If you want to hop on, I'll have you on and we'll just, ask some questions, but I won't make a big deal out of, anyway. But setting SOS and that whole situation aside, I do want to know, is there any interest in the audience in me really digging into some stuff that Paul Stormberg sent me about Dave Arneson? I have a book by Rob Kuntz. I think it's called The Genius of Dave Arneson or something like that, but it's about Dave Arneson's game design acumen and so on. And I'll be honest, Paul sent it to me last year. Now I have dug through the vast library of Rob Kuntz work, and there's so many little fascinating bits and pieces and snips and snaps and so on and cool stuff in there that I really do want to take a deep dive. We used to do what was it, antique D&D Roadshow deep dives back years ago, and I'll kind of want to go back to that because I feel like I've lost some focus on, it's just me talking about everything and nothing at the same time, and I haven't talked enough about Dungeons and Dragons lately, and I want to get back to it, like the old Starship song, find your way back to the heart. And talking about D&D is kind of the heart of things. But at the same time, I don't want to just be like, well, here we are with yet another look at Keep on the Borderlands. Now we're going to look at the French versions. Yes, Mar, that book was a pain to read. Well, thank you for the warning in advance. Yes, Mar. But yeah, I can take a look at it. I can dig into it a little bit if you guys are interested in that. We can surely do that. But I think there's a lot of D&D still to explore. I mean, I don't want to overthink it, I know a lot of you folks, some of you folks have come to classic D&D through this channel, and that makes me very happy. I love it that a younger set of folks, and I know not all of you guys are younger, but there's a set of folks who never really got into D&D, and just for whatever reason, they fell down a rabbit hole and they came on to, to catch these videos, and you've gotten into it and you've gone out and you bought physical copies, or you've gotten print on demand for physical copies, or maybe you're just happy with the PDFs. You're just a PDF weirdo and you've gotten into D&D. And for you, this is all brand new open vistas, right? You want to run and feel the grass under your toes and just the wind in your hair, the sun on your face kind of thing. Mikey Mank says stream an OD&D game session. I may do that, Mikey. You never know. You never know. Am I going to be the Paul Harvey of Dungeons and Dragons? And so God's sad. I need a man who can game all night, get up the next morning, paint some miniatures, go to bed with painting back, get up again, ignore his front lawn, paint some more miniatures, teach his kids to play basic D&D, and order pizza for dinner. And so God made a gamer. God said, I need a man who can cry over the Lord of the Rings, get mad at George R.R. Martin, and still find enough time to roll up character stats for Game of Thrones characters. And so God made a gamer. That's it. That's all I got. I can't really go on with it. Am I going to be I may. I may. You'll know the rest of the story. But yeah, I can dig into stuff like that. I still think there's some corners to look around and some things to look at. I mean, we could do like maybe a real-time map. You know how Kyle and I have done like the real-time hex population? What if we did live one evening, like a real-time map population? We kind of did that when we looked at random dungeon generation, didn't we? We kind of did that, but maybe we can do it for like an entire level, an entire floor. Mikey Mank, I'm about to start an OD&D campaign, just getting it together, deciding which supplements to use. Okay. Mikey Mank, if I may make a suggestion. Don't use the location to hits and percentage of hit points rules in Blackmore. Just don't. I had Mobius at map. Let's just do it. So yeah, we can do that. We can absolutely do that. I mean, it's a good mental exercise, if nothing else. It's a good way to show how easy it is to create a dungeon level. See, that's where that's where I think later editions, not people who play later editions, I'm just saying the later editions themselves kind of sort of fall down a little bit. Is AD&D has a very robust system for creating dungeons. Quick Save says, my favorite stuff is Gamma World. Thank you, Quick Save. But other systems don't. I'm not one of these people. Look, I think that when you play Dungeons and Dragons, there's an expectation that there'll be dungeons. I remember years ago when I first came upon the Usenet landscape of Dungeons and Dragons. And I can't remember if I prompted it or if someone else made the statement, but basically to the effect, hey, Dragon Magazine April's issues. But the question was about slaying monsters and that sort of thing, and exploring caves. And this person said, well, I assume they sniffed. It was a kind of statement that a very posh sniff precedes. I've never used a dungeon in my game, and my players have only ever heard of a dragon, but they've never encountered it in all the years that I've played. And I also, I don't use levels or classes. And I remember thinking, bitch, what do you do then? What do you do? Because to me, it sounds like you're playing the wrong game. That sounds like the opposite of fun. If somebody says, I have a D&D game going, and I go, and I'm like, I'm playing Bob the Fighter, and they're like, no, you don't understand. I don't use classes. Oh, okay. Well, what level is your game? Oh, my sweet summer child, I don't use levels. Okay, well, you using one of like classic modules like Keep on the Borderlands or Lost Caverns Association? No. No, I'm afraid you've got it all wrong. You see, there are no dungeons in my game. I'd be like, listen, I got a septic tank I gotta go dredge out at the house. It's how it is. I gotta keep that sucker maintained. And I just truck on down the road. Like, why would you? Is it bait? Is it just bait to like sucker people into your cultural vandalism and force them to sit at your table and listen to your boring ass story game? Maybe it's not boring ass. Maybe it's very swashbucklery. Maybe it's very daring do. I don't know. But there are expectations. If I play Dungeons and Dragons, I expect dungeons at the very least. If you're one of those frou-frou types that thinks that, dragons should be like the size of Los Angeles and have wings made out of adamantium and bodies made out of diamond, and no player could ever hope to even look them in the eye lest they go insane and their heads explode from fear, that's your own cup of tea. Me, I think they're treasure hoarding, fire breathing lizards who need to be put in their place every so often, unless they're the good kind who know their place. Um, but I just feel like, and even if you like legitimately, no, I don't hate Dungeons and Dragons. I like Dungeons and Dragons. I just like exploring the romantic possibilities between these two characters more. There are better game systems. It's like when people say, "Well, would you run if we asked you to, would you run a 4th edition game?" I'd say, "Look, I'm going to use ascending ACs. I'm going to use or descending ACs rather. I'm going to use descending ACs. I'm going to break the saves up like they were. It's going to be human, elf, half elf, dwarf, halfling, half orc, gnome. The 9 classes. Everybody has a different XP chart. You pay for leveling. Leveling is slow. I mean, by the end of the day, by the time I throw in all the ingredients that I want to be comfortable, I'm just like, look, the long answer, no. Short answer, no. Because I'm just going to end up running 1E AD&D for you. And I mean, I can I can play the game I want, or I can try and hammer a game into something that I think that I want. I'd rather spend that creative time doing creative stuff for the game that I like, not trying to make a game I don't like into a game that I want it to be. So to the people who say, I've thrown dungeons out of D&D and dragons might as well not exist, why? Why bother playing D&D then? Why not play Harn or RuneQuest or Rollmaster or Warhammer Fantasy or GURPS Fantasy or Hero System, or rather Fantasy Hero, or Tunnels and Trolls, or Legendary Adventures? I just don't get it. And the fact that D&D has been pushed to the brink and over the edge away from old school tells, in by design, the way it's gone for the last 20 plus years, tells me the people who play it now don't love D&D. They love the name, they love the money, and they absolutely love the you know, media buzz they're getting. They love the lifestyling of it, but they don't love D&D. They never did. I mean, who out there, let me ask you, audience, there's 14 of you watching. I would love to see 14 responses down here in the chat. Who out there, when you were a kid playing D&D, said, if I ran TSR, I would remove every element of the game we're playing right now? Not, I would tweak this. Who said alignment would be relegated to pointlessness? No races would be evil. You know, the big push would be whatever is in Strixhaven. We wouldn't pay attention to Greyhawk or even Forgotten Realms Dragonlance anymore. Even if you missed when you attacked someone, you'd still be able to do damage to them. And you don't really die. You have to like fail a bunch of saving throws in a row to die, for your character to die. Anyone can be any class. How many of you said that? Jack Photons, there's a YouTube AD&D DM that takes characters away from the player at 6th level and 0 hit points equals permadeath. Would not want to play. Neither would I. Sounds to me like that DM needs to play him some Warhammer Fantasy roleplay. Well, it is kind of a trick question, Keys. It's a trick question in that none of us as D&D players back in the day would have done the bundle of things that's been done to D&D now. I mean, I think we'd all tweak things. We'd all tweak things. We would all analyze things and change them. I've already railed about surprise. I don't like it, Sam. I am. Doesn't make a lick of sense. It's very simple. Roll a d6. On a 1 or a 2, the party that doesn't know the other party is there is surprised. That's it. But I'm not going to get off on surprise right now. I tweet surprise. Yeah, Jack, you got the right of it. It used to be that you put an old product in a new wrapper and called it new. Now you put a different product in the old wrapper and call it the same. Yep. You are absolutely right. I mean, when you're right, you're right. I'm not getting the comments from YouTube, unfortunately. It apparently blew up. Yeah, but somebody said, "I want a mainline shot of D&D." Didn't WotC already do this with? Yeah, they did. I mean, I still maintain that all they wanted was the D&D name, and they tolerated some of its tropes to bolt on to Ars Magica and just sell Ars Magica back to people. So, and I can't really change anything at this point, right? I don't have the what was the thing from Galaxy Quest? Roll space time backwards 18 seconds or something. I don't have one of those to roll space time back to 1998 and make some adjustments and cleanups and released AD&D 3rd edition. What was it? The Omega 13 in Galaxy Quest, I think. Coolbot says, I think the old school resurgence is a direct resort. Galaxy Quest is the best Star Trek movie. Fight me IRL. Corion, I will fight you IRL because Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan is the best Star Trek movie. Galaxy Quest is a close second. Jack, I think I think, well, first of all, just to go down the line, Coolbot says, I think the old school resurgence is a direct result of WotC D&D. I think you're right. I mean, when the old school really got kicked off on the internet, I was the first person to step up and start pushing for a better way. Back in late 2001, early 2002. Because I had looked at 3rd edition. I was playing 3rd edition. I continued to play 3rd edition. So, I wasn't speaking from a point of ignorance. I knew how good it wasn't. And I said, you got to make room. WotC did a decent job reviving Talislanta back in the 90s. When they got D&D, I was optimistic at first. I didn't know what was going to happen. I know that there were a lot of people who Now let's be perfectly clear about something. The old school goodness of D&D lies deep in the early mid 80s all the way back to 74. Now, I'm not pissing on anybody who likes second edition. I know there's a lot of people who just seamlessly moved to second edition and they kept their first edition books to hand and just kept on playing. But kind of by the time they got to kits and whatnot, I mean, that was the time, 89, 90, I was completely checked out of D&D anyway. And when I looked back at it when 2E came out and there was a big push, I was like, eh. I haven't heard any rumors, cool bot, about sixth, but you know. And Ricky, that's absolutely fine. I mean, you know, play what you want, how you want. Sure. Absolutely. But here's the issue, Ricky, and anyone else who might be interested in hearing my take on this. I would love to play what I want, how I want. I would love it if other folks enjoyed what I enjoyed. I want the stuff that I love to get promoted, not even over the current stuff. I want everybody to enjoy exactly what they like. I don't think you're a bad person if you like fourth edition. I don't think that makes you some kind of mental case. I know people who absolutely had a ball with fourth edition, and they were heartbroken when 5e came out because they felt like they were being abandoned and kicked to the curb. Welcome to the club. But at the same time, I've been fired from the hobby by Wizards of the Coast at least a couple of times before. I at the very least want classic D&D to maintain and to grow a little bit. And when they juggle around what is available on print on demand and what isn't, and denigrate the old school, which they did a lot with fourth edition, it tends to stick in one's throat. I just said, let's see. Oh, I already read that from Coolbot. Galaxy Quest is often put on semi-official best Star Quest. Of course. I hope we get the TV show. There's been some talk of a Galaxy Quest TV show. First, everybody was on board to do it, and then a couple of years later, when they were looking at getting production going, Alan Rickman passed away, and they said, "Well, no, we're not going to do it." Now I've heard that it's coming back now. But anyway, to more directly answer your question, Ricky, is if you go back and you look at WotC basically pissing all over the classic D&D legacy with how they presented fourth edition, and then yanking away all the PDFs. Those are a couple of pretty great firings, I thought. But that's just my opinion, right? That's just my opinion. But anyway, you know what? We've got right here, guys. We've got classic D&D of all kinds. We got both kinds of music here, country and western. We've got both kinds of D&D here, original and Someone says we're going to play chess, but the rules will be checkers. You won't be playing chess. You'll be playing checkers with different pieces. Sure. No, we've got it all here, and I'm very much happy with how things are around the neighborhood here. Because guys, 994 subs, unless it's gone up. Nope, it's still 994. But I think the last couple of streams, including Friday night's Gamma World game, definitely Thursday night stream before it, but Friday night's Gamma World game, I had I think at peak 17. I could be wrong. I'll have to go back and look at the analytics. We've been doing really well. Yeah. Damien brings up a funny point. I don't really want to go down the road and talk about Paizo and 3.75 AD&D. But yeah, they didn't really learn. It's wow, WotC fired all of their 3.5 customers. We're just going to scoop them all up and we're going to play Pathfinder. And all you guys who like Pathfinder for what it is, we're changing completely now. But anyway, has anybody played Starfinder? Is Starfinder any good? I haven't. I have not. But anyway, to go back to viewer counts, because that's fun to talk about. No, I really, I really quite like the numbers we're at right now, but to get back to gaming and games a little bit more, I do, lest anyone be confused, I do appreciate all role-playing games. Well, most role-playing games. Well, old school role-playing games. Well, original AD&D. I'm kidding. It's a joke. He moved to Idaho, where his connection is a potato. Don't we have somebody else on the stream who's also from Idaho? I could be wrong about that. Maybe it's the same person. But tomorrow night, we're going to play. We're going to have a let's play. We're going to let's play first edition AD&D. The party is standing fast. They are not running away from orcs in Castle Greyhawk. They're beat up. They're nicked up. I can't remember if they're completely out of spells, but they're ready for another wave. Potato internet. That's okay. Elon Musk is going to blot out the sun in the name of getting 5G to everybody. Empire of the Petal Throne. I wish I still had the EPT set. I needed the money. It was worth more than I needed the EPT set, but that is an interesting game. That is worthy of a deep dive. I'm going to have to see if I can track down a PDF of EPT to talk to you guys about. But yeah, tomorrow night, victory or death. The party is in Castle Greyhawk. We'll have a little chit chat before then. James mentions they're tapped out on spells. Oh, random internet hijinks has a 75 PDF. Nice, very nice. EPT is is a strange setting. It is a whew, that require rules wise. It's just OD&D. Setting wise, man, you got to bend your brain into like an inside out donut shape. But maybe we can do a deep dive on that one day. But tomorrow, again, some light conversation, and then into Castle Greyhawk we will be here with a whole host of adventurers. Then Wednesday night, open chat. Who knows what I'll talk about? Could be more of this crazy gibberish that I've heard about. Thursday night, more of the same. I'll try and have something. Maybe, well, I don't want to commit to do an EPT like in the week that I got the crazy idea to talk about Empire of the Petal Throne. Yeah, M.A.R. Barker was a linguist and probably a genius, but whoo, boy. Kind of like Tolkien in that he said, well, I'm going to make up a language. I better invent an entire culture first. So Wednesday and Thursday are kind of open. I'll find some cool stuff to talk about. We'll find some cool stuff to talk about. I'm sure you'll catch me talking about printing again. Friday, of course, Gamma World. Let's play Gamma World. We will return to Gamma World, where there have been many character deaths. And then on Saturday, which will be April 2nd, we're doing a little something. Saturday, you and me, and I got some guests lined up, guys. We're going to do a 12-hour live stream right here, right out to YouTube. So stop on by, because at the end of the anniversary, the last hour of the anniversary, you guys will get to hear the interview that I conducted with Gary Gygax in September of 2002. You'll want to be here for that. So I'm looking forward to it. I hope you guys are looking forward to it. I'm going to go grab a beer before the Monday night AD&D game starts. So y'all have a wonderful one. We'll be back tomorrow. I'll blather on some more about 3D printing and why AD&D is the best D&D ever and whatnot, and then we'll hop into the game. And somebody mentioned something about wanting to see or hear some OD&D being played. Maybe we could do that. Not tomorrow night, but I'm just saying, maybe in the future we could do a Let's Play OD&D. Guys, thank you to everyone who was on the stream tonight. It was awesome to see. Guys, we're 994 subs. We are 6 subscribers away. New subscribers, if you have any friends who like classic Dungeons and Dragons, miniature painting, classic RPGs in general, and want to come to a place where 5 nights a week they get a live stream of me talking about it, featuring guests with an awesome co-host. Oh, I forgot. Geez, I can't believe I forgot this. This week, Kyle and I are going to be talking about RuneQuest. That's right, but I'll come back to that. But anyway, if you want all those, if you want all that stuff, or if they want all that stuff, rather, your friends, tell them to come over here and click the subscribe button and click the bell icon for notifications. And if 6 of you new folks have 1 friend each that you send over here, we'll hit 1,000, because when we hit 1,000, I'm announcing the convention. So y'all have a good one. But before we go, I want to take a minute to thank the show supporters. Digital Discord, Joshua Garlock, Lord Corion, Ricky Maru, Mobius, Kevin Reynolds, Doomsword Deathmaster, Mark Simpson, Damien247, James F. Keck, William Smith, the Dungeon Minister. Sit you down, Father, bless you. Manny Wall, Mark Corey, Kevin Wood, and Todd Sharp. Thank you all so much. And we are going to be adding Subscribe Star soon. So if you don't like Patreon, and I get it, you can support us over on Subscribe Star. I'll announce that when it happens. Thank you all for a wonderful evening. Y'all take it easy. Peace out.